I'm going to talk about my talk is about scaling Scrum, scaling Agile, and I called it Design for Perfect. And that's because when I scale Scrum, when I scale Agile to hundreds of people developing one product, normally it works. And it works because I use an organizational design that is optimized for the right goals. And that's essential. And I call that a design for perfect. And I stole that from a gentleman called John Seddon. I don't know if you guys know John Seddon. He's a professor in the United Kingdom. And it's essential that you have a design that is optimized for the right goals. And in this case it is shortest lead time, agility, and learning. Learning about the product, about the process, and so forth and so on. That's me, but that's not interesting. So an organizational design that's optimized for the right goals, that's essential. So let's take an example from a different context. So this is a truck, as you can see. It's a very, very large truck. And this truck has a design, just like your software has a design. And this truck is optimized for moving dirt or rocks very efficiently from A to B. And it does that in a way that is very efficient. It never breaks down, for example. It can be utilized a long time and it works efficiently, and it's not designed for maintenance. And when you have to change the tires, you can see the tires are twice as big as an adult man. That will take some time. But it's okay because they usually don't break. You usually don't have to change the tires. But when you do, this can take a day to change tires. But it's perfect because this design of this truck is optimized for moving stuff from A to B very efficient. If you look at this design, for example, this is a Formula One car. Well, this design is not optimized for moving rocks from A to B. You see? And it's also not optimized to operate for a very long time. These guys are happy if it makes the end of the race, and then everything needs to be replaced, engines, everything, right? And the tires are not made for long lasting. No, the tires are made for something else. It's designed for something else, for grip and so on. So they need to be changed real quick. And you can see here a team of more than 20 people changing tires. And most of them wait. Most of these people do nothing. They are waiting for the others to do something. One is waiting for the other to take off the clutch. The other one is waiting for the old tire to be removed so that he can put on the new tire, right? Another one is waiting in the back there to see, hey, if the engine turns off, I'm there to turn it back on again. But most of them are doing nothing. So this is a design not optimized for working all the time, right? For as to chair time. But they can do it in 1.92 seconds, change 4 tires. You see? So you can imagine, because this is a ridiculous example, that you will never change the tires in 1.92 seconds of that truck. No matter if you put 15 of those teams over there, it just won't happen. Because it has a different organizational design goal, different design goal. So when I walk into these kinds of companies, big companies, and they want to be agile and flexible and fast, they have an organizational design already. And their organizational design is usually optimized for working, for utilization, for as to chair time. And that doesn't match with agility, you see? So it usually is something like this, like we know from traditional organizational theory. It's a single function, whatever it is. iOS is a single function, testing, Java, dev, ops, whatever. It's a single function. Each of these functions, these departments has managers probably, and these managers will work very hard to make their people work very efficient. Because the assumption is everybody works very efficient, then the whole company will be better, will be produced more, right? So if you optimize the parts taken separately, then we will be better as an organization, which is false. It's not true. If you optimize the parts taken separately, you can be absolutely sure that the performance of your system will go down. Why? Because everybody's busy. So that means if you're busy and I need this lady to do something for me, she's busy with something else. And if I need her to produce something valuable for the customer, well, it gets delayed because she's working on something else. And because that happens with all these people, 200 people, there's a lot of stuff being accumulated. We call that inventory. There's no flow of value. We're producing a lot of stuff, but not finishing any stuff. You see? So we end up doing a lot of agile at these companies. There are a lot of Scrum teams, as I discussed with some people during these days, a lot of Scrum teams and a lot of task boards and a lot of retrospectives, and they're doing a lot of agile, but hey, nobody's agile. We don't have the benefits. Nothing gets done faster. And typically, this is from a customer of mine. This is an energy company. This is a very big system. It had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of customers and users. And you can see here, this is an architectural diagram. You can see here all kinds of components. It's in English, yes. So these are all software components, marketing and contracting and billing and pricing and all these kinds of stuff. And if you use your traditional organizational design, how will the organizational design look like if you have such a system, do you think? So how would you do Scrum with, this is 16 teams, this customer. How would you do Scrum with such a architecture if you had 16 teams?
Kill most of them.
Kill them, okay, that's a radical. But what usually happens, we'll have a products team and a pricing team and a contracting team and a documents team. That's what happens at my customers. Also in Kiev, because I've been talking to everybody that I've talked to today, do this. You end up with something like this. And all these teams are working on one component. And because we're doing Scrum now, so we just copy one Scrum team and paste another. So what we will do is, we know Scrum, so we have 13 teams because it doesn't fit the slide. We'll just have 13 product owners, you see? Because we have 13 Scrum teams. Who has this organizational design? All right? Yeah, you can say the truth. So, but there are no 13 products, right? This is one product. So which product are they then owning? None. You see? They're introducing a waste. And of course, they have product backlogs. 13 or 16 product backlogs. Interesting. What's on here? This is all stuff only of importance to this team. Only for importance to one component. And guess what? None of what this team or that team or that team or that team produces in isolation is worth anything. The only thing they produce is waste. And they're optimized to producing a lot of waste. You see? You cannot sell anything what these teams individually make. So we don't want that. And as a result, let's assume that this is a feature, the red one, and as a result, most of the features that you want this organizational group to do, most of the features have work that needs to be done by more than one team. In this case, this feature needs to work to be done by 3 teams. You see, and that's okay. And then you have another feature needs to be done by these 3 teams, and then another feature needs to be done by those 3 teams. But problems will occur. You know why? Because the work that is needed for each of these teams to produce a PBI does not distribute evenly across the teams. You know what I'm saying? So it could be that this red one has a lot of work for this team, but only a little bit for that team. You see? And the yellow one has a lot of work for this team, but a little bit for that one. So what will happen is that a team will be full. Right? Like green here. So for the green feature, we need this two teams, but also this team, but this team is full. So what happens with this green piece? It cannot be done. So what happens with this piece? It goes back on a product backlog or so, or somebody needs to keep track of it, that we don't forget this, you see? And because this is a big system, this is 200 people, for example, there's not one piece, there's a lot of those pieces that do not equally, that cannot be done in this sprint. So there's a yellow piece and a red piece and so on. So what you will see is that special rules are introduced. There are frameworks that have special names for this, like feature owners, or project managers, or somebody who needs to keep track of, well, wow, when is this team done? Oh, then they're going to do this, but then we have to remember because then it has to be integrated with these two things and tested. But yeah, it's out of order and it is phased in time, so someone needs to keep track of all of that. And this is all unnecessary, you see. All this stuff comes from your organizational design. And this goes on and on and on, and it's big. It's a mess because it's not 3, it's 20, 30, 40 of these things. And of course, while scaling, we also need a lot of Scrum Masters, so we have a lot of Scrum Masters there. So, and then we get into this state of chaos, management chaos, additional complexity, unnecessary artifacts, unnecessary roles. We need to manage dependencies now, which is not needed. There are no dependencies if you develop one product. Measuring progress will be very hard because most of the PBIs are not done in a sprint, so we measure progress on, I don't know, tasks done, or if we have 16 teams, we have 16 burn downs, and then somebody does magic mathematics and say, hey, this is your progress. But it's not progress at all, as you know from Scrum, right? It should be as simple as single team Scrum. And then you have to worry about, well, who will break up the PBI and distribute it among the teams, and who will integrate it, and so on. And you will end up in a mess. And there are whole frameworks who make a lot of money with selling a mess. And it looks somewhat like this. So you have a lot of extra unnecessary coordination everywhere to make this happen. So this is wrong. This is Scrum applied to a design that optimizes for a different goal. Utilization in this case. Or finding who's wrong. Or working according to standards. And these are quotes from my customers. Real quotes who work in such a setting. So for example, we built this 6 months ago and now other teams are going to use it. So it can be this, difference in time can be so big that a team worked on this part of the green feature 6 months before the other team is finally ready to integrate with it. Can you imagine that? You can imagine that, right? Did you experience that? How was it?
We cannot do other way, just because of number of teams, there are this 4 big teams, and it takes a real time from understanding what other teams are doing.
Yes. And then you have to integrate with stuff that was made 6 months ago. And those guys don't even remember what it was. But when you have a problem, what then? Then what? You see? And you will have problems with stuff that was made 6 months ago. There's no doubt. But then those guys are doing something else. So you have to interrupt them. But nobody wants them to be interrupted. Because they have fake product owners and fake Scrum Masters saying, no, we are in a sprint, you cannot interrupt us. And all this stuff. You see? This becomes better and better. So what's one better? Oh yeah. Wow, we don't have time to help other teams. So we're all building one product, but we don't have time to help other teams. Interesting. It's very, very interesting. You don't see that in one team Scrum, right? At least if it's a good Scrum team. A person is ready to help another person in the team. So why shouldn't it apply also to multiple teams? It should. But it's a result of the incorrect organizational design. So typical scaling approaches use an organizational design that's not, which has a goal, which is not speed, flexibility, and learning, and they scale it along architectural components or along business process steps. So if I have 20 business process steps, and I have 20 teams, I'll end up with business process step 1, team 1. Business process step 2, team 2. Or if I have an architecture, then I'll end up with an exact copy of my organizational structure with my architecture. And there are very smart people who thought about this for a very long time ago, and it's Conway's law. So if you studied computing science, there's this gentleman Conway, he already talked about this a long time ago in the 70s, and he says that it's dangerous to couple architecture to organizational design because then they become interlocked. It will be very hard to change the architecture because it will imply an organizational design change, and vice versa. So don't do that. He already knew 40 years ago, but we keep doing that. So don't do that. Don't add any roles. Don't add any artifacts because it's not needed. So how can we do that then? So cool. So the first thing you must understand is that culture change is very easy. In case you didn't know, it's very, very easy because culture always follows structure. And structure is organizational design. So the first thing is you have to reorganize. Well, and that's easy. You can do that in 15 minutes. You can eat over beers, you can do that. You have to prepare, but then you flip your organizational design so that it is optimized for the right goals. It's a design for perfect. We'll get there. And we have a good starting point because single team Scrum is already designed for perfect. Perfect for single team Scrum is I can give any feature to this team because I only have one. And this team will do it from A to Z without any dependencies on other teams or any other people. That's a perfect Scrum team. You give them all the most valuable stuff all the time, as you know, and they do that from A to Z. So now that we have 20 teams, it must be the same. We have 20 teams, we give a feature to any of those teams, and they will make it from A to Z. That gives me agility, right? I can give it to any team. If I have a data model team who specialized in data model, so what happens if for the next 5 months there's not that much data model work? You see? What will they do? I know what they will do. They will find work so that they will keep busy. Usually, probably they will go down the backlog, finding work that's data model work, and then bring it up to the top of the product backlog so that they can do it. But guess what? It's there because it's not that valuable. Otherwise, it would be up there, right? So you run into all these kinds of problems. So Scrum at scale should be designed for perfect too, just like single team Scrum. And it's easy, right, to do that. So all the teams can independently deliver any PBI. It's possible. It's easy even. So how do we do that then? So this is it's not that visible, but I hope you can see it. This is a picture of how you can do it. There's a lot of teams here, you see. There's one product backlog here, one product owner. There's one sprint planning. It's in 2 phases, as you can see, 1 and 2. 1 is where we look at what we want to do. 2 is how we're going to do it. So the teams just pull whatever they think is most sexy to them during sprint planning part 1, and then they plan sprint planning part 2 just like they did before in single team Scrum. Yeah, and then they have their own sprint backlog, and they work in the sprint all together, and at the end they deliver one integrated increment. So now the dependencies are no longer at the feature level. There's no longer a green feature that is done by 3 teams. No, a green feature is done by 1 team, and the yellow feature is done by 1 team too. So a feature is just done by 1 team, as it is obvious when you have 1 team Scrum. You see, it's very simple. Only thing, yeah. The only thing the only problem is that we are, at my customers at least, is that we've been working 5 years on one component with one team. So this component team doesn't know anything about the other components. So that's a problem. But we can solve that. Because we have this meta skill, I've been told, that we have since we were born. Who knows what the meta skill is? I'm sorry? Learning, yes. Excellent. We can learn it. And you know it's possible because there's already a team who knows it, who did it before. So it's possible. It's not impossible to learn. So cool. So if you do it with a lot of teams, we can easily do this up till 100 people, at least in the companies I work, and I work across whole of Europe. And this is with hundreds of people. It's the same thing, but more times, right? So if you have hundreds of people, you probably have a very big product with a lot of users. And when that happens, we can identify areas of value for your customers. So I can explain it easily, I hope. So let's use a very old school way of looking at a software product. Let's say we look at a software product by the number of screens it has. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember that, but they used to look at, well, this system has 100 screens, right? So let's say we have a system with 800 screens, which is true for this. This is a real customer, 800 screens. So, and now you are the customers of this, user of this system with 800 screens. If I interview you, I will discover that you spend most of your time, this lady spends most of her time in screen, I don't know, 51 until 131. Because she works mainly in contracting. And I have a talk to her, she said, no, I spend most of my time in screen 650 until 800. Because she works in sourcing. Sourcing means bringing customers into the system. And if I talk to all of you, I can identify areas of value where where a customer and end user spends most of his or her time getting value all the time from the features, you see. So that's interesting because that's exactly the areas in which you will scale. You will scale in value areas as seen from the end user's perspective. So therefore, these group of people here, up to 100 people, can deliver features, end-to-end customer-centric features, but only in one area. And they don't have to have the IQ of Albert Einstein to understand all the 500 components. Because, you see, if you have to, my IQ ends really quick, but smart people, they can have 10, 20 components, but not 500. So therefore, you need to find a natural way to scale your product, not your Scrum. And you do that by looking at your customers. It's obvious. And these guys do the same thing. Same thing, and they produce one product increment. So now that there is no more dependency on the features here, because this guy, the team does a feature end-to-end, there is no more interruption. I will not interrupt his team anymore 6 months from now, you see. But the dependencies, it's not dependencies, but it's opportunities for coordination, are now moved from feature level to the code level. And that's good. Can you imagine that? If we have 20 components and we have component teams, each team just works on one component, so there are just 7 people, let's say it's 7 people in that team, checking code into that component. Can you imagine that? Right? If you have a single component team who just writes code for this component, it's only those people checking in code to that component. But now we have 300 people checking in code to that component. So there's a bit more conflict, but it's good because the conflict happens now. It's not an interruption, it's now. We are merging right now. So everybody's happy to solve it. Everybody's very knowledgeable about the problem because they are working on it right now. And it's not an interruption. Interruption is when I'm working on something else 3 months from now, and this gentleman comes and says, hey, your code stinks. But I don't remember exactly, and I'm working on something else. That's an interruption. And of course we have CI and all those beautiful techniques and tools that helps us with this. So this is excellent, I would say. So if you design a system against this ideal, which this is an ideal, and there are graduations to get there, the good part is that by design, people, in this case, will start to learn about more and more and more components until there is no more IQ. So you will find the borders of, you will find the limits of how much featureness your team can handle. Right? So, I sounded a bit abstract, but this is very concrete. This is a feature team adoption map. So if a feature team is 100% feature team, it does everything. So the lower axis here is the definition of done that you know from single team Scrum. So it does everything from coding, unit testing, designing, integrating, end user acceptance testing, even code creation, to across all the components. Then we're here, we're the magical, the ideal feature team. We co-create and we with the end user and then implement it across all the 500 components. You see? But most teams are here. They do some unit testing, some coding, and some, I don't know, maybe integration, and then do it at one component. So going from here to 500 components, well, it takes a lot of meta skill. But the good part is you can work towards that in steps. And while you're moving up this ladder, because you have to be more cross-component, and your definition of done needs to be broader, while you're moving that step by step by step, you increase your speed, you increase your agility, and you increase your learning. You increase your learning because you work across a bigger chunk of the feature, therefore it's closer to an end user piece of functionality. So that's how you increase your learning. You increase your learning also around what to do, how to test, how to produce it into working software. So this is a real feature team adoption map for my customer, the customer we were talking about. And this is their definition of done, and this is a simplification of all the components they have. So they started here, and now they're here. So their teams could do only one component and did only unit testing and coding. And now they work across an area and do every sprint until performance testing. Now, and the only thing that's required for this is learning. And the good part is, well, we can all do that. So now they're working on this, on the next step. They want to do it, they want to extend it. This is the next step they're working on. Only 2 people are asleep. 3. So that's good. That's fine. So cool. So how do we move? Well, this was the first thing. So instead of having 3, 4, 5 different teams, we had 5 teams still, but they now worked across these 5 components. That was step 1. And these guys started working across these components. Instead of being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that work only on one component, we have 5 teams who work on 5 components, and so forth. And you can imagine, once we master that, if we still have IQ left, we expand it and expand it, right? Until you have no more IQ left. But it's okay, then you have maximized your potential. And in order to do this, yes, you cannot have a component team organizational design. Right? So, we need another organizational design. So we don't need, and we don't want any more managers who are managing a single function group, for example. Billing is a single function. We don't want billing managers. Testing is a single function from a different perspective. We don't want a test manager anymore. Right? I was talking to a company who does Spotify. And Spotify has, I don't know, not Spotify has, but an implementation of Spotify has for example, that they have a leader, a guild leader, or whatever it is. It's a tribe leader. And they have a test tribe, or they have a Java tribe. And there's a tribe leader, and in that Java tribe, there are all Java people. Or it's a guild, I don't know. It's an organizational structure. But the problem is that all these guys are, that these tribe leaders have HR responsibility over those people. So what will happen if you're a Java programmer and you are in this tribe, and the tribe leader is a Java expert, that's why he's the tribe leader, and he's HR responsible. He will probably be very incentivized to be good at Java. Is that all right? Because in 3 months you will have a talk with him and he will say, okay, how about your Java certified architect certificate, right? How about the newest framework? Did you already know it? And it would be very uncomfortable for you to say, no, I spent the last 3 months working with this lady, developing my testing skills, because testing is much more important for my team. Then he would say, oh, interesting, but no raise for you. You see? So we don't want single function groups, not only because it doesn't work, because it's optimized for the wrong goals, if you want to optimize for agility, but also because it doesn't promote cross-functional people. It doesn't promote multi-skilling. So what do we want then? We want managers who are managers of cross-functional teams. It's so obvious, right? It's so duh, right? You want to, and that's why a product owner in Scrum doesn't have authority over the development team. You see? It's the same. They are peers. They are part of a Scrum team. So it's not a matrix organization. It's a cross-functional line organization. That's what you need. So there are two things now again. So you need a cross-functional line organization and you need a feature team organization. Wow. You can only do that if you have senior management support. Because you would need to change the organizational structure, you would need to change HR policies, and a lot of other stuff. So bottom-up change ain't gonna work. Sorry. Not working. Still not work. So cool. And then you'll end up with something as simple as this. A cross-functional line organization. We see here a product owner team, or a product owner. It's team here because the product owner has a lot of stuff to do, like marketing and sales and promotion and talking and so on. And at scale, and also at single team Scrum, by the way, a product owner doesn't write anything, huh? And especially doesn't write user stories. So don't get me started on that. User story is about telling, right? A story, not about writing. And then we have all these teams. We have a line manager. This is the cross-functional line manager, of course. We need that guy or girl. And we have an undone department. So what do you think is in the undone department? Anybody? Gunther isn't allowed to answer. What's in the undone department? Customers. All right. No, so there's this definition of done thing in Scrum, and it's probably not perfect for you at this moment, because perfect would be there's nothing left to be done at the end of every sprint. Nothing. Everything is done. It's rolled out. It's labeled. It's documented. It's implemented. Everything is done. There's nothing left to be done. But probably you're not perfect yet, so there's stuff to be done, right? And probably a lot of stuff to be done. So in your journey to perfection, all the stuff that cannot be done in a sprint needs to be done eventually, right? And these people are in this undone department. And your goal is to eliminate this department, because in perfection, all these teams do everything. There's nothing left to be done. So performance testers, we are not able to do performance testing yet, so they're there. Performance testers. It's bad, it sucks, but that's where we are right now. Maybe in 3 months, 6 months, we'll get that in, and then our perfect definition of done is more in line with our current definition of done. And we keep extending our current definition of done. That was the bottom axis. Remember? And if you scale it to 100 people, it's like this. Same thing, only now we have areas. You see the 3 areas? And now you also have this, but okay. This is just real. It really happens. At the customer, I'm not going to work with them, but they had 100 plus, can you imagine? 100 plus agile coaches there. Wow. That's a lot of agile coaches. But these are guys, this is competence and coaching, so all the Scrum Masters and so on could be there, and the agile coaches. Who knows what the difference is between an agile coach and a Scrum Master? Yes. What is the difference?
Different work is our team, and there's synchronization of team that begins together.
Oh, it's a team. It's a level. It's a focus level. A level of focus. Okay. So in Holland, the difference is, well, if you're an agile coach, you can ask more money, but they do the same thing, or they should do the same thing. Yeah. So cool. So this is how it looks like in a larger setting, and the idea is that, well, what my customers in the rest of Europe do, is not here, but when talking to people here, I think you guys do the same thing, is you're doing the wrong thing and trying to do it righter. You see? You're doing the wrong thing because you have the organizational design is a very good organizational design, but it's optimized for other goals than agility. And you are trying to do that wrong, it's wrong, but you're trying to do that righter. And there's a very smart gentleman, it's called Professor Russell Aikoff. He says, if you do the wrong thing righter, what will happen is that you will be wronger. Okay, I'll repeat. If you do the wrong thing righter, you will become wronger. Yeah, it's better to do the right thing wrong than the wrong thing right. But yeah, I'm not kidding. I'm very serious. So don't do this. You can. This is doing the wrong. You can do it righter, but it's still wrong. Cycling this way, right? You should cycle this way. You see. And this depends on your organizational design. There's no way you can change the tires of a truck in 1.92 seconds if you don't change its design.